Right. Let me share screen quickly.
And Ben, do you see we have an attendee?
I do see we have an attendee.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. So hi everyone, and welcome to the November 9th meeting of the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan Civic Advisory Committee. My name is Ben Demers. I'm an economic development planner with the city. I'll also pass things to our director to say hello.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. My name is Rachel Carney. I am the Director of Economic Development.
Nice. As everyone on this call knows, this is the first time that the Civic Advisory Committee is meeting since September of 2022, so it has been a while. I was not with the group last time, so it's very nice to meet everyone, to see everyone's face. I do want to make a note about that shift. So the last time that y'all met, it was with the use of GoToWebinar. The city is now using Zoom for all public meetings that are taking place virtually. So I do just want to make a note that when using Zoom webinars, we did not use the chat function. This is essentially to try to comply with state guidance around open meeting law. So any public meetings like this do not allow for what's called side conversation, and the chat function enables side conversation. So any comments made this evening, we just ask that if participants want to make a comment, that they raise their hand, and then we can call on you to make that comment. So I know it's a bit different from how people use Zoom in some other settings. Just want to call that out. Okay, so I'll read through our agenda quickly for this evening's meeting. So we'll start with roll call, reintroductions, and approval of a previous meeting summary. And then we'll shift into a development update for 299 Broadway. We have Adam Benjamin from the Mark Development team here with us this evening. We'll then talk a bit about potential temporary uses prior to construction at the 299 Broadway site. And then we'll shift to also talk about updates from CAC members regarding community perceptions of 299 Broadway, really just kind of leaving a space for anything that people are hearing about the project, about the site, or might be thinking themselves. We'll then talk a bit about CAC member recruitment, and then we'll have time at the end for a public comment period and meeting adjournment. Anything else that people want to add or ask ahead of time before we get started? Not seeing any hands. I am seeing the chat. Okay, thank you, Councilor Klingon, or Councilor Wilson. Okay. So to shift into roll call, reintroductions, and approval of the previous meeting summary. So normally at this point, we would go around and do a roll call to see who is with us this evening. Because this is the first time back together in a long time, and because this is my first time meeting many of y'all, I was wondering if we could start by just doing a quick name, pronoun, which seat you occupy on the CAC, and anything else you might want to say about why you got involved with the CAC. So as I mentioned, I can start quickly and we can kind of popcorn it. And then I'll also mention at the end CAC members that are not present this evening. So my name is Ben Demers. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an economic development planner with the city, and I support our coordination work around 299 Broadway, as well as a few other sites within the city. And I can pass things to Edith.
Hey everyone, my name is Edith Kwok. My pronouns are she, her, hers. So Rachel, I totally forget which role I have, so I was trying to look on my email, but could you remind me?
I will have to look it up too. Actually, Ben probably knows it best.
Yeah, I believe you're the alternative for the Spanish community liaison.
Okay, thank you. And I live on Wheatland Street, a street over from Foss Park, and 299 Broadway is just down like really close to me, and I'm really interested in just having a voice in what happens in that space. Thank you, and handing it over to Will.
Good evening, Will Colin, he, him. I live on Bon Air Street, so just a short walk away from 299 Broadway. And I am the renter representative on the committee, at least one of. And similar to Edith, I care a lot about what is happening in the community. I have walked up and down Broadway and Winter Hill for enough years to really feel like that space could use something better. So that's why I'm here. And next I'll pass it over to Breck.
Hi, can everyone hear me? I'm in a little
Yeah.
bit spotty reception, but my name is Breck Bailey. I own Winter Hill Brewing across the street. I believe my seat on the committee is business owner representative, and we've been operating in that space for, I think it's close to eight years now. So I've always had an interest in the development of that space. A lot of our customers have plenty of opinions on it and live in the neighborhood. So very excited to see it moving forward.
Nice. Thank you, Breck.
Sorry, I
No, it's okay.
can't.
I was going to say, in case it's hard to see people, I can pass it to Councilor Wilson.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Councilor at Large Jake Wilson, he, him pronouns. I'm also a neighbor of the site at 299. I almost got my community advisory committees mixed up. I'm also on the 90 Washington one. 299 Broadway. And yeah, I've been I've been here since 2004. And yeah, it's been great to be part of this group, and very excited to see where we go with this site. Am I supposed to pick someone who has not yet spoken? I feel like I'm last.
I think Rachel.
Rachel,
But I know.
how can we forget Director Ned
Rachel,
Carney?
Adam, and Robert.
So we'll turn things over to Adam and Robert in a moment to give the update on the development process. For anyone who's tuning in, though, my name is Rachel Ned Carney. I'm the Director of Economic Development and the former staff liaison to this group, and it's going to be taking over for me. And I use she, her pronouns, and it is exciting to be back together. And I'll just note that when we last wrapped up, we sort of closed down this group so that we could have one community conversation at the ZBA, and transition out of this conversation with a great report from this group that went to the Summer Redevelopment Authority and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they were able to use all the recommendations from this group to great effect, because we are here today with an approved project that we're ready to start having more detailed conversations around.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Regarding the previous meeting summary, so we don't actually have a quorum to kind of come to consensus and approve that summary. So we'll hold off until next time, and I think there'll be a couple to approve at that point. Were there any questions about the summary that was sent around? Sounds like no.
It was a good refresher.
Glad to hear. Okay, so with that, we'll shift into our first substantive agenda item. So we're going to start off with a high-level development update regarding 299 Broadway. As I'm sure all of you know at this point, the project passed the Zoning Board of Appeals back in February, I believe. And then more recently, the development team was able to close on the property this past October. So for more details about what's to come, I'll pass things over to the Mark development team.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Adam Benjamin with Mark Development. Robert Korf is also on the line. Robert, were you able to get privileges to speak?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Awesome. We can hear you.
Good. So I'm in. Yeah, I'm Robert Korf, Mark Development. Nice to see you all again. Happy to be here, and also happy to report that we've reached a major milestone as of first week of October, and we now have title to the land. So we are the new gatekeepers of 299 Broadway. Mr. Cohen is no longer with you all. So I think that's a very good step in the right direction. We're very excited, to push this project forward. As an update, since we last met, I'm sorry, my text just keeps going off. I can't. As an update, since we last met, this is a very complex deal, heavy towards affordable housing, which requires, a lot of local city and state assistance. And, the good news is we did get approved from the Affordable Housing Trust for a $6 million commitment. So that was a major hurdle that we've gotten over. And in addition to that, through the city of Somerville, we applied for a $7 million mass grant application. And the good news is we were approved, but the bad news is we were approved for 2.5 million. So, we're optimistic enough, we view this as a partnership with the city, with the state. Everybody's aware of the economic challenges that this project is faced with going forward. But we are comfortable enough where we are now both Beacon on their building and us on our building are both into full design. Beacon actually is probably a few months ahead of us. They had to get an early start so that they could submit for the February of 24 DHCD funding round. And all indications from DHCD, they're well aware of this project and what the ask is. And we're very optimistic that we will be approved on the February application. I think approval comes sometime over the summer is when you find out when you get the reward. So we're all pushing forward on this project as though, with building documents, with a schedule to have us in the ground towards the end of 24, first part of 2025. And the intent here is to have full building package by the end of the year. And then we all, with the city and the state, we're going to take a look at the world, which is continuing to evolve in terms of, real estate and financials and financing and the like. And, if there's still a gap at that point in time, we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and find a solution. But, we're very optimistic that we're going to get there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made, a large investment in acquiring the property, as well as, all the costs we're going to incur now on the building documents. So I don't want to be negative at all here. This is all positive news. There are a lot of eyes on this deal, and there's tremendous determination by all parties for this project, to see this project through and make sure it succeeds. And I think Adam Benjamin, unless I missed something, that's sort of the high level overview of where this project stands right now. In the interim here, over the next year or so before groundbreaking, the site is, as you see it, we fenced it off, and Rachel may be more informed than I am at this point, but we have had some preliminary discussions of allowing the city of Somerville to use the site over the next year for any purpose they find use. There's been talk of a warming shelter for the Walgreen building, and also use of the remaining lot aside from Walgreen by DPW. But no updates as of now on the city's interest in that.
Yeah,
So,
we'll get into that a bit in the next item.
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's no problem.
Didn't mean to jump ahead. So Adam, have I covered everything you think that we should hit?
I think you hit it all, Robert.
All
Right
right.
up there.
So any questions, whether it's tonight or in the future, we like maintaining an open line of communication, with the community. So always feel free to reach out to either Adam or myself for updates and information along the way. And again, thank you for having us tonight.
I see Councilor Wilson's hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. Couple of questions for first of all, I mean, I guess we're gonna get to this later. I'll save my comments. Potential civic uses of this for that. But a couple of questions I had. I just been hearing reports of construction costs finally starting to go down, just between the global slowdown on the construction front, leading to lower demand on the labor side, and that the supply chain is apparently finally starting to heal itself. Are you seeing any of that yet in terms of your projected costs for the project?
You know, first, let me say from your lips to God's ears. I mean, we could certainly use a break here, and costs coming down would be a huge break. But frankly, you know, what we're seeing now is a leveling off of increases to a normalization of price increases, you know, which typically historically have been running about 2-3% a year. But we're not seeing any price adjustments downwards on this project, or you know, we have several others too in the planning stage. But you know, I'd welcome anecdotal information that you might have on specific projects, because maybe my information's outdated or I'm working with the wrong people.
No, I don't. It's funny. I'm so conditioned to say through the chair. It feels weird not saying that here. Yeah, I mean, I just talking to some commercial lenders who are involved in some things, and they're starting to report back that they're seeing lowered costs on some of that. So happy to talk offline about it. I don't want to give out names here in public, but that, you know, I guess it's good to hear that the you know, sticker shock increases have stopped.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point in time where you really couldn't lock in a price because things were just
Yeah.
rising so quickly. So a subcontractor would refuse to lock in price because by the time you know, he was to show up on site, he had no confidence level of what costs were going to be at that point in time. That was a major problem, you know, a year ago. That has subsided, and we're not seeing that anymore. Subcontractors are willing to lock in price now, because there's a better handle now. There's a normalization of cost and increases going forward.
I appreciate the update there. The other question I had is a fairly simple one. You might have actually had this relayed to you by our economic development folks, and that is just, would it be possible to get some signage up on the fence near the former Walgreens and on the Broadway side near Winter Hill Liquors, and maybe also maybe a third spot near the former Star Market building along the sidewalk, just explaining to people what's happening there. Maybe a QR code, something that takes people to the project website so that they understand, because you would think everyone would know what's happening there. I can't tell you how many times I get asked, or I see on social media someone asking what's happening there. Believe it or not, there's still a lot of mystery surrounding this out in the community. So I think that would help. Just some, you know, metal signage, maybe a nice picture, nice render of what might be coming.
Yeah, better yet, I think that's a great idea. I haven't heard anything on this until now. But Adam, why don't we look into maybe, you know, getting some renderings blown up to put on the site, you know, on the fence with, you know, the website, directing people to the website to get more detail on the project.
QR code.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, Councilor Wilson. We can get on that for sure.
Thanks. Every once in a while, I've got a good one. That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other CSC members have any questions for the development team? Not seeing any hands. There'll be lots of future touch points. But thank you to Robert and to Adam for joining us this evening.
Our pleasure. Do you want us to plan going forward to attend, you know, on a regular basis, maybe not every meeting, but every couple of months, just to, you know, sort of update you? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. And we can
Okay.
kind of talk more about that schedule sort
Okay,
of ahead of
great.
each meeting.
terrific. So just reach out when you know you need us, and we don't, again, you don't have to wait for one of these meetings. Questions come up all the time, I'm sure. So feel free to reach out anytime. And
And
again,
actually, I had a question for Robert. So
Yeah.
prior to the closing on the sale of the land, Councilor Kling and I generally had gone through Adam Dash, your attorney. Now that you have closed on that, should we be increasingly just going straight to you with questions?
yeah, sure. I always encourage you, just contact me direct. Hey, one other material update, just so you know, today actually, we closed on the lease buyout with Walgreens. So they're no longer in possession of that building. So that piece of the deal is done as well. If you didn't know, they had remaining term on that lease, I think till 2032. So we had made a deal a year back with them that once we closed on the property, we'd buy out the remaining leasehold.
And if I may, I think going back a couple years now on this project, that was one of the very big concerns we heard early on, was making sure that we didn't lose Walgreens in the neighborhood. And it really is, I think, a exciting piece of the puzzle here, that Walgreens, I don't think they were down a day, being able to open back up in their other space.
And Rachel, I don't know if you recall, I mean, this was pure luck. Like a Walgreens, when I contacted Walgreens on this, they said, oh, wow, it's a good thing you got a hold of us now, because 6 weeks from now, after I had called them, they had an option coming up on the old location where they moved back to. And if I had contacted them 7 weeks later from when I did, they would have let that option go, which would have meant they weren't going to give this location up so easily. So it was really a moment where I said, the stars are aligned on this one. Good things are happening, but we got lucky.
So the only downtime Walgreens has experienced is when someone drove through their front door a couple of weeks ago. Good. That's the way.
Really?
Not good that someone drove through the front door. Good about the minimal downtime.
Wow. I didn't hear that. In the new location they moved to, obviously.
Yeah, there's
Wow.
still a temporary like residential door up. It's
Nobody got hurt, I hope.
I believe no one was hurt. I wouldn't be laughing about it if I'd heard anyone had been hurt.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay.
All right. Anything else we can help you with?
I don't see any other questions or hands up.
Would you like us to stay on for the follow-up discussion on temporary use?
No, that's okay.
All right.
You're welcome to stay for the full meeting, but
Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off, and Rachel, just when you have a better sense of what you'd like to do there, obviously reach out.
We would
Okay.
definitely will. This is part of that process.
All right. All right. Enjoy. Great to see you all. Have a good night. Bye.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. The one other thing I wanted to add that Adam and Robert didn't mention, so he mentioned the Affordable Housing Trust and the MassWorks grant. One other piece that the city has been working on with the development team over the past year is something called an UCTIV, which is a urban center housing tax increment financing program. And this is essentially a program that allows the city to forego future property tax on the parcel, which just helps make the financials of the project work out. So that is something that the city, especially the housing division, worked on with the development team and submitted to the state. So what was formerly the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, it now has a different name, but still that entity approved that UCTIV. So there's still going to be some more specifics going forward, but it's just another sort of piece to support the financials of the project in partnership between the city and the development team. Okay, I think with that, we can shift into that temporary discussion that Robert started to discuss. So as Robert and the rest of the team mentioned, because the team is not planning to start construction until the end of 2024, the city's been exploring interim uses on the site in the coming year. Chief among these uses has been snow storage in the case of snow emergencies. So snow storage is an extremely important and difficult function in Somerville. I have watched many presentations from the commissioner of the Department of Public Works about this very topic because the city does not actually own a lot of land where it can store snow. And it's not always the prettiest use, but it's also a very critical function that allows the city to operate when it snows. So the city's Department of Public Works, which manages snow storage, currently stores snow at 90 Washington Street, which is another site that is owned by the Redevelopment Authority in the Inner Belt, or sort of on the Inner Belt East Somerville line. And they're also exploring snow storage options at 350 Medford Street, or the Homan site, which is a site right at the intersection of School and Medford Street. But we are, with DPW, exploring the potential for snow storage on a portion of 299 Broadway in the parking lot. They are still working out the exact details of this, but just wanted to mention it here before you see any of this function start, potentially in the next couple of months. That is currently the only temporary use that we're talking about. I know that Robert made mention of the warming center. There were some other potential options that the city was exploring with the use of that Walgreens building, but currently the only use that we're really focusing on is this snow storage function. So yeah, just wanted to mention that and ask if there are any initial thoughts or concerns from CAC members.
So one concern is that area at the bottom of the hill tends to flood a lot. So if there's a lot of like snow being stored there and it's melting, then there's going to be a lot of extra water. So that's one thing that I anticipate my neighbors would be concerned about.
I do believe that, Ben, maybe you remember this, were there drains in the lot that were identified?
I can't remember the specifics of the drainage, but this is definitely something that is high priority for us. And I think that DPW has had a lot of learnings from 90 Washington Street in the past couple of years about things like drainage and about things like salt runoff. So they're definitely applying the learnings from there to here, but this is something we'll definitely reiterate to that team.
Thank you.
The other thing we've been thinking a little bit with them about is like buffering visibility of it as well. So Councilor Wilson serves on the 90 Washington group as well. I don't remember how in depth we went with this, but the Somerville Redevelopment Authority certainly got into some details around how to make this work. So that's been something that, again, if there are operational concerns around this, we want to know from you all, and also give you time, if you hear of things from your neighbors and friends and colleagues, to share back with us as we continue to pursue what this would look like in the details.
Will, I see your hand?
Yeah, I'm just I'm curious about a couple of things. Councilor Wilson, you mentioned some civic uses, so I'd love to hear about that. And I'm also curious what the discussions have been like around the use of the Homan site. I'm not necessarily super up to date on kind of what the current status is, but I do know that there's a fair amount of community organizing going on to turn that into something like something of use for the community. And I'd be interested to know how people react to the idea of using it for snow storage as opposed to something like something else.
You want me to answer the part that I was asked first, Ben?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, so full disclosure, when I had met with Mark Development, I'd sounded a pessimistic sort of warning note about snow storage there. But what I hadn't thought through was, we're talking about a, non-permeable parking lot, right? And given the two choices between storing it at the very permeable Homeland site that we're looking to develop, I think it probably might actually make more sense to do it at 90 Washington, given that it's a parking lot. The reason why I was concerned about that is because I remember the city having to pay fairly substantial remediation costs after using Draw 7 Park as a snow farm back in Snowpocalypse 2015, whenever that was. For those who don't know, like basically a bunch of nasty stuff ends up in, because of cars and roads and everything, motor oil, like all sorts of gross stuff ends up when you melt a bunch of snow down, you're left with a concentrated amount of that. And that my concern was just ending up, I didn't want to see the site end up needing additional remediation or any delays or extra costs in this, given how interested everyone is in seeing this project move forward. I'm less concerned about that after some conversations, so I'm not necessarily opposed to snow storage at that site. In terms of the civic use thing that I'd mentioned earlier, I mean that is one of the civic uses I was talking. When I say civic, I don't mean necessarily like social, events. I'm thinking city. So that was one. The warming center in the Walgreens was another one. You all see the homelessness crisis that we have, not so much acutely here in Winter Hill, but Foss Park to some extent, and then East Somerville in particular. And with a winter just around the corner here, we do have a lot of concern about our unhoused neighbors' safety and their health in that. And so that is one potential use. And then I know Councillor Klingon, he's not here, but I will echo a question he asked was, maybe some community pop-up things in the property, some just further sense of community here.
Yeah, I can start to respond to that. So with the warming center, so the warming center was another option that was being explored by the city within the timeline in which the city is hoping to operationalize a warming center for this coming winter. It's looking like it's too tight of a timeline between now and when they're hoping to open that to make the Walgreens space, which is what was being explored for the warming center, make sense. There are just a lot of logistical challenges that go into running a warming center. I mean, even the fact that there are not accessible bathrooms at that site, like the bathrooms are in the basement without an elevator or something to access them. That's just one of the logistical challenges. There were sort of many that were gone through. So I don't want to 100% say it's ruled out at this moment, but logistically it's looking fairly difficult. To the idea of having more like social community oriented uses on the site, I don't think that's something that's definitely ruled out. Hasn't been the focus at this moment. Obviously, as we're talking about sort of a warming center and snow storage, the focus in the more immediate term has been on sort of these civic uses that are most relevant in the winter. But I think that is something that could potentially be explored in the partnership between the city and the development team for spring and summer.
Can I follow up on that? Just ask, has there been any discussion of storing DPW equipment or contractor equipment as we've seen done elsewhere in parking lots?
The priority has been snow. I think there's a potential need for material storage from DPW, but not necessarily equipment.
Okay. I just asked because I know Tim Zanelli Excavators, for example, our main contractor who does a lot of water sewer work is based right here in Winter Hill.
Oh,
And I could see them, I know they've used other sites. I think they've used 125 Lowell maybe. I've seen their stuff stored around the city. I just could imagine them in particular contacting the city about that.
that is something that we should look into. I think one of the things is as these sites, especially for these really short-term temporary uses, this happens a few different times in different places around the city where we've got a moment where there's an open yard. It does save the city a substantial amount of money, but to be able to have these things local, right? If the contractor doesn't need to mobilize and demobilize to a home location that's outside of Somerville, but they can stay right where they need to be working, it speeds up the work, it makes things move faster. So it can be really productive for this kind of use. It's not necessarily the most attractive, but it is very, very functional in making things a little bit easier for our friends in the maintenance and operations side of City Hall.
Rachel, are you saying it might besmirch the lovely bucolic beauty of 299 Broadway? I'm joking.
I was pretty much going to ask the same thing. It's not like that's a particularly beautiful spot, or has been in the last decade.
But we are sensitive to neighbors. So again, we want to make sure that we,
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
vet this out with everyone and make sure that there's, you know, especially as you talk to your neighbors and colleagues and, you know, others in the community, if there are like peak concerns, we want to hear that so we can really think about that as we work with the development team on what this relationship might look like for this next year.
One very predictable complaint or concern, not a complaint, a potential concern you're going to get is anything that would be done that might stir up rodent activity, just to make sure that that's being mitigated. You know, we hear about rats all the time.
That is always a good reminder, and we should put on our list to connect with our colleagues in DPW in ISD who focus on the rats or rat czar.
Rat czar is plural now. We have
rat czars. Good
rat
point.
czars, which I didn't know could even happen, but we have two.
But they spoke very well at all of the fall community meetings around the work that they are doing to reduce the rat population and not give them opportunities to grow.
And then oh, sorry, Will.
I'm just curious to learn a little bit more about the logistical concerns of the warming center. I think I don't actually know very much about what options exist today, if any, but appreciating that logistical concerns can be prohibitive, it does seem like the sort of thing where, like, if we have an opportunity to really protect people in our community over the winter, I would push for perfect not to be our enemy.
The key concern here is ensuring restroom access in a way that works with the operations of a warming center. Because if we have restrooms in the facility, they need to be observable by the staff. And so the restrooms that exist in the building are pretty circuitous route from the main space. And down a flight of stairs. So it's not an accessible restroom, and then it would pull staff away from supporting the folks in the main space. So that increases the staffing need to operate. And so it's this push-pull of, can it be done with the operator? Can it be worked out? Can we figure out getting a bathroom installed? Something like that. And so these conversations have been happening. We are still figuring it out. It's just, we've been investigating. We don't know if it's going to be feasible.
Can I jump in? I want to thank Will for asking. I was debating how to what degree to dig in on that and ask about that. I guess I'm guessing we've looked into the option of potentially doing some indoor portable, like temporary restrooms or something. You know, I don't know. There's a spider. Hold on 1 second. Whoa. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't know to what degree those exist. I'm familiar with outdoor portable restrooms, but you know, we're talking about indoor. To Will's point, can we get resourceful here and creative and come up with a solution that lets us do that?
Yes, we continue to research the choices. Indoor portable restrooms do exist, hard to procure. In a timely fashion is part of it. So again, we are continuing to look at all of the options here to if it might be possible. It's looking really tight, but that doesn't mean it's not a done discussion.
And to follow up on that, I was just going to point out to those who don't, like, we have to go through a procurement process of competitive bidding for all this. It can take a while. One of those things, you know, it exists for a reason to prevent cronyism and corruption in government with awarding of bids, but it can make us it can make it we're a little less nimble than we could be in terms of these things because of it.
Yes, I feel like I've looked at more portalets than I ever thought I would.
But point definitely well taken. And then to the other comment that was made, I can't remember your exact question around the home and site, but just so DPW is still sort of looking also at what snow storage would look like at the home and site. The added difficulty there being that because it's a gravel lot, it changes a bit how plows can function there and like raises some particular concerns. So they're trying to work that out. Home and site is still also though being looked at for temporary programming through ARPA funding. And so trying to figure out a way to configure temporary programming at the site in a way that would still allow that to occur, whether that be, you know, something at a corner of the site or whether that be an installation or something that people interact with from the sidewalk. That those details are still being worked out, and that RFP has not been released yet. The city's been working with their procurement team to get that out. But yeah, so that's sort of where snow storage on the home and site sits currently.
And long-term redevelopment of that site is an ongoing conversation.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, or these notes are sort of threadbare's not the right word, but they'll get kind of filled in as we create a summary for the meeting. Okay, I am not seeing any hands. So with that, I'm going to shift into the next item, which is just updates from CAC members. So given that this group hasn't met in over a year, we just wanted to have a space where CAC members can share things they're hearing about the project or that they themselves have thought about it in the past year that haven't come up from the previous two items. So really just want to turn it over to y'all if you have been hearing anything.
This is Breck. I think the point that was made earlier is right. I think a lot of people in the community are just kind of unaware of the plan, what's going on. I think people see the fencing up and I think something's going on, but they're I think for a large group of people, they just don't know what's happening on the lot. So I think those signage ideas are good. I think it'll generate some buzz, and I think it'll be a good way to get the message across.
I think on that note, another thing that I've heard is sort of a lament of the sort of reduction of sort of quote unquote free parking in that area. I know there is still a certain amount of that space that is not fenced off, but as soon as the fences went up, I did start hearing about, well, why can't I park there, especially if nothing in particular is going to happen there until next year. So that's one concern. And then I think this may go a bit beyond the scope or purview of what we are looking at, but something that has been brought up is also a bit of a questioning or observation around the sort of juxtaposition of large scale, super modern development happening while there are also essentially whole blocks of Broadway which are currently vacant storefronts. So it brings to mind for me how we might might start thinking about a more holistic approach to the neighborhood as a whole. Not sure that there's anything actionable there, but it is sort of a interesting side by side of like new development planned while there's a lot of emptiness on the street.
Something similar to what Will is saying is like some concerns about like the businesses that are already existing on the street. And like, for example, there's like conversations about bringing in like a little bodega or grocery store type thing, but there are so many basically like bodega grocery stores all through Broadway, and just like some concerns about just those businesses like not being as successful if there's other businesses competing against them.
I think one that's a good point. I think the other thing that I have thought about is how disruptive, is the construction project going to be? It's going to take whatever it's going to be, a year or 2 years, I would imagine, and it's going to be some pretty heavy equipment, and I'm sure there will be periods where water is down or whatever it is. But I do have a little bit of a concern. What does that do to foot traffic in the area or people driving, down Broadway? I guess we'll see, but it's something that's certainly been on my mind the last year.
And I'll just say the thing I get asked about the most by constituents is the street parking situation in light of the ZBA granting that waiver for the 78 resident parking permits for the market rate units on top of the unrestricted number of resident parking permits for the affordable units and anyone with accessibility needs in the complex. It is a very, as we've talked about, it's very tight there parking wise already. And I've explained, the higher price for those market rate, the sort of special resident permits with the monthly fee. And I've talked, that tends to the anxiety level drops a little when that gets explained. But yeah, the parking remains a big talking point about it in the neighborhood. And I'll say, I always thought it was important to talk about that, to acknowledge that anxiety, as we're, extolling the virtues of this project. I just believe it's important to talk about all of it, including the negatives. So yeah.
No, definitely. That's why we're here. Is there anything else that people are hearing discussed, or any sort of responses to what other people have brought up? Okay. I'm not seeing any hands, but yeah, I mean, these are the kind of things that so the city is going to continue to be working behind the scenes with the development team on this project. And these are the kind of things that I know they're not with us anymore in this presentation, but these are the kind of pieces of feedback that we'll be bringing to the team. So this is very helpful to hear.
Ben, sorry, Ben, can I just add, people are excited about this, like citywide,
Totally.
In the neighborhood. I don't want it to be just a bunch of negatives on there. Like, people are very excited about it. People want it to happen. People got excited when the fencing went up. There is a lot of excitement for this. Not to get political, but I listed my involvement with this on my campaign literature as a point of pride, because people are excited about it and it's perceived as a very good thing for the city. So I don't want to just make it seem like this is like we're wallowing in negativity and concern here.
No, I mean, I think especially for projects where there is a lot of positive sentiment, it is good to just make the space for the concerns.
Yes, totally agree though, on both points.
Yeah, I just want to add that part of the intent of this group is to stay in existence all the way through construction. That way there is this space, so that when issues come up, because there are going to be those issues, Breck, that you noted, right, as those moments of discomfort during construction, because all construction involves moments of discomfort, that we have a space where those concerns can be raised, both to the city and then also to the development team. So we will be asking them to come at regular intervals to meet with you all, and those that are going to join us at some point, because it will beef up the numbers again, to be able to have this conversation as a community.
Yeah, that actually might make sense to shift into our next item, which is CAC recruitment. So obviously, I believe there are 4 CAC members here with us this evening. So CAC has lost a couple of members. I think a couple members were lost during the initial period last year when y'all were meeting, and then a few more have resigned since in the interim year, just due to either other commitments or moving out of the neighborhood. So because of that, staff are going to be doing outreach in early 2024 to fill the vacant CAC seats, just to kind of ensure that to sort of comply with the charter for the CAC that has, I think, 10 to 12 members. I can't remember the exact number right now, but that also kind of ensures that we're hearing from other parts of the community and really getting that consistent feedback that this group is meant to be a forum for. So I believe the positions that are currently open, there's a resident renter position that is open. There's a resident of the Mystics program position. There's an institutional partner position, a Portuguese community liaison, and then at least one of the workforce positions that is open. So as I mentioned, staff will be doing outreach in early 2024 around those. It might also end up making a bit of sense to like shift some of the alternate positions. I believe that's also possible. So if that ends up making sense, we can look at what that looks like when we're doing that recruitment and seeing who's responding. We're also likely going to be recruiting for the Gilman Square CAC at the same time. So just given the proximity of the areas that those 2 CACs work on, we're going to try to sort of plan an outreach strategy that's sensitive to that proximity to make sure that people that might be interested in both sites, like they understand what each group does, which that they might want to get involved in, just to avoid any confusion. But once we start to put together that recruitment material, we'll share it obviously with existing CAC members, and would love if y'all could share it with whoever you think might be interested. Rachel, is there anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I think before we get to public comment, which is the last one, did want to just also think about frequency of these meetings, at least for this next little stretch. We wanted to get you all together because we were considering this interim use. We wanted to make sure we didn't miss an opportunity to gut check the issues that we might, that there might be if we were to bring uses to this city uses to the site. But we don't know that we necessarily have anything really for December. So it's a little bit of a question for you all in terms of just as we get into this, what we've done with the Gilman Square CAC is that we have agreed that we'll never meet less than once every 3 months, just as an opportunity to make sure that we're staying in contact and there is that regular rhythm and venue for communication. And so as we sort of think about that, wanted to just note that, and then as we get closer to, things will sort of go through ebbs and flows over this next period, right? Because we've got a year until they do construction, but there are going to be points where there's going to be a logic for the development team to present back out to you some things about, okay, here's where we are on the construction planning, and here's where we are on, some final detail of the layout, things like that. If things have to be adjusted in terms of getting those nitty-gritty details worked out. So wanted to touch base, see what you all think about that. If makes sense to join it, get back together in January. We'll still need to this recruitment we're expecting also will go into January, February, because it's often hard to get people's attention in November and December to sign up for things.
Yeah, Rachel, I like the idea of never meeting less than once per 3 months, because it does definitely create sort of a drag on our ability to maintain continuity. That being said, I'm never one to hold a meeting with no purpose. So it would be great to get a bit of a roadmap or overall better understanding of what the process looks like between, let's say, now and groundbreaking, at least for the time being. So we can sort of anticipate what should we be thinking about, what should we be speaking to our friends and neighbors and community members about, what's most relevant to be discussing. between now and then. And also that's just helpful for scheduling purposes.
Yeah, heard. I think that that's something that staff could look to put together for the next meeting, is like more of a roadmap of what the year will likely look like. Obviously, things shift, but want to make sure we give guidance. Breck, did you want to add something?
Not me, no.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, it sounds like making sure we never meet less frequently than every 3 months, but it's likely that in December we won't have enough to warrant a substantive update, so we can look again in January if we have things that are worth meeting about. But otherwise, February would be the latest that we would come back together. And we're looking to still do this second Thursday of the month. So if that causes any recurring conflicts with people, please let us know. But otherwise, we'll look to use that day. Okay, and with that, I think we can shift into public comment period. So we have one member of the public who is here with us. So I just want to invite any members of the public if they would like to make a comment. I'm gonna, realizing this is a holdover from the go-to days, my apologies. Okay, so I'm seeing a hand up from Mary Mengen. I'm gonna unmute you now, Mary.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for holding this meeting. I've been curious where things stand. I'm a neighbor nearby in Winter Hill. And I know this is hella premature, but I'm wondering if there's any thought to what to tell people who might want to get on a list for future residency or thinking through that. I mean, I have friends who have been chased out of Somerville because they can't afford it here, and I've also remember hearing, I don't know if this is still the case, but like the Mystic um waiting list was 5 years long. So I mean, I know it seems like ridiculous far out, but I can imagine people wanting to get on some kind of waiting list or or understanding who will be the ones in sort of driving the leasing and renting stuff. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you. So for the affordable units, I'm not sure the exact process that will go into getting matched with a unit there. I can ask the Beacon Communities team more about that. It's usually different for different affordable projects based on like finance sources. For the market rate units, I don't know if that's something that they've already started to talk about, but I can also bring that up with the market development team.
And Ben, should we mention that there is potentially a consolidated rental wait list that is in progress on the city side?
We can mention it. I don't know enough detail to like speak cohesively to it.
Oh, I mean, that's all I had was
good.
just there is a consolidated rental wait list that is in development and hopefully on the way soon.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I don't see any other members of the public here with us this evening. But given that this is the last item on the agenda this evening, I just want to do one final ask to see if anybody else has anything they want to add to the conversation, given we might not come back together until 3 months from now.
Just make a note for Mary's point. I cannot send a link out at this point, but there is, if you search for consolidated waitlist, as Councillor Wilson mentioned, there's a bit more detail on the city's website about what's going on there and how its progress is going.
Mary, I can email that to you if you want me to.
Yeah, sure, that'd be fine.
I'd just like to thank Mary for joining as the sole resident of Somerville on, not, non-member resident of Somerville on this call.
Okay, and if there's no other comment, then I think we can move to adjournment. It was great to meet many of you who I had not met before. And yeah, looking forward to this group continuing. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel welcome to email me and I can answer what I can, and I can also funnel things through to the development team. So we'll see you in a couple months.
Yeah.
Thank you.